So, in the same article I've linked below, you'll be able to find what he said about the House of Lords, and it is this. All I can say is the House of Lords is stuffed full of former MPs, party donors, spivs, former European commissioners, because of course he's got to have a Brexit angle. They're a London-based clique. Most of them are mates of Blair's and Cameron's. The whole place is a complete and utter disgrace, and the sooner we close the whole shooting match down and replace it with an elected Senate, the better. I agree with, I think, probably every word there. I think myself, the problem with the House of Lords, first of all, the fact that it is unelected in the modern age creates a scenario where it lacks credibility in a modern democracy. But it goes beyond that into the practical workings of it. It should be elected for two reasons. First of all, Nigel Farage has given one. He's described it as a London-based clique, and this is inevitably how it works. Most of the people in the House of Lords, members of the House of Lords, live in London. Now, Keir Starmer's plan to replace the House of Lords with an elected chamber will fill it with people, as he says, from around the regions of the UK. Just like the House of Commons, the members of the House of Commons are distributed around the country in terms of where they live, roughly, well, almost exactly in proportion to where people live. Even given that not every MP lives in the constituency they serve, in Nigel Farage's case that is certainly not the case, but even for other MPs, you might have two MPs that are married to each other. Well, you've got to choose one constituency to live in, but MPs do tend to live either, most do live in the constituency they serve, but at least next door, right? It's close by, it's there within a reasonable commute for work. Whereas the House of Lords isn't like that. Some of them live in France, for goodness sake. So there's that side of it. The other problem is, as again Farage says, appointments can be corrupt. It's, I mean, quite a lot of the members of the House of Lords are perfectly suitable members of the House of Lords, because what is the purpose of the House of Lords? It is to revise legislation. So the House of Commons passes legislation. They pass it to the House of Lords. The House of Lords scrutinises it and go, OK, I don't think this is going to do what you intend it to do. We don't think this is a good idea. Here are our suggestions for amendments. And then it is up, it can't force anything. It's up to the House of Commons to accept or reject those amendments. For example, the House of Lords, because Labour don't have a majority there, have rejected some of the measures in the Employment Rights Bill. They want it massively watered down. Some Tory and Lib Dem peers have said, no, you need to water down these workers' rights. Angela Rayner has since said, like hell are we? Which was no great surprise, because it would be a breach of the manifesto to accept these amendments. So what's going to happen after the summer? The House of Commons will vote on the amendments and they will reject the offending ones, the ones that water it down, and send it back to the House of Lords, right? So the House of Lords is a revising chamber. It doesn't itself create legislation. It scrutinises it. It says, well, we think you would get these negative consequences. Maybe you'd like to do it this way instead. And sometimes that's a good idea and sometimes it's not. It's still for the elected chamber to decide. But if the House of Lords were elected, it could still be a revising chamber. We're not saying it would be able to scupper legislation from the House of Commons, but it would better reflect the people's priorities. Better, not always the case, it would better reflect the people's priorities because the people would be voting for them. Whereas, how are peers in the House of Lords appointed? Well, some are former ministers or former heads of trades unions or other experts who have been used, like heads of charities sometimes. So you do get some people going to the House of Lords who are actually experienced in scrutinising legislation, which is their job. So that works. Having it full of former MPs, Nigel Farage criticises that. That's naturally not a problem. That's a good thing. But, as he also says, it's full of party donors, spivs, he says, former European commissioners. Not everyone in that list is suitable for the House of Lords. Why would a party donor get a peerage, for example? Why are they getting the peerage? Maybe they're perfectly suitable. Maybe they're really good at scrutinising legislation and they just happen to donate to a political party. Or maybe it's because they donate to the political party. We know that under Boris Johnson, actually from David Cameron. David Cameron, Theresa May and Boris Johnson. They had this scam running, and it was a scam, not a scheme, whereby the Conservatives would appoint you party treasurer for like a year, only a year and a half. They had a party treasurer a year and a half. You had to donate yourself personally at least 3 million quid to the party. And then once you stood down as the party treasurer, you would then be nominated for the House of Lords. This happened 10, 11, 12 times, something like that from memory. There's quite a few of them. It was a revolving door. You stood as the party chair, which is a party matter, got nothing to do with public matters. As the party treasurer, you donated £3 million to the Conservative Party, then at the end it got a seat in the House of Lords. Well, that's corrupt, isn't it? And there'll be other ones as well. I don't imagine it's just the Conservatives. There are other corrupt reasons for appointing peers. You might, for example, say, yeah, keep quiet about this and we'll give you an honour. Happened with Gavin Williamson. He wasn't very happy with his treatment under Boris Johnson. And he had a lot of, he used to be the chief whip for the Conservatives. He had a lot of secrets. So his silence was bought, in his case with a knighthood, his silence was bought quite cheaply. For some of them, they need a peerage though. You know, I mean, it's not, once you've given them the peerage, there's no guarantee they have to keep quiet. But if you assume that they're at least honourable, there are some people who are given peerages as a reward for loyalty or like, you know, silence on something. That's corrupt as well. And you don't always know who that is. So much better to be elected. Get rid of all these corrupt appointments. I'm totally with Nigel Farage on this. But Nigel Farage now says he wants some Reform UK peers. Now, again, I'm going to accept his reasoning. I'm going to say, yeah, do you know what? If I was the Prime Minister and I got that, I would look at it and go, probably ought to have a couple at least, you know. I mean, they've only had this lofty position for about a year, so I'm not suggesting they should have loads. But nonetheless, they do now have a lot of councillors. They do have not many MPs, but a large share of the votes. And they are leading in the polls, in the opinion polls, in the voting intention polls. I would certainly say, yeah, you probably deserve some representation in Parliament if that's what you want. Not all parties do. You don't get, for example, SNP peers. That is because they choose not to nominate their own for seats in the House of Lords, which is fine. But the Green Party do. The Green Party are no bigger than Reform UK. They're not actually technically as big at the moment. So yeah, I would say that's fine. No problem. But why does Nigel Farage suddenly want peers when he was very much against it in the past? Now, it's not automatically hypocrisy. I am going to say there are members of the House of Lords who are themselves against the House of Lords, the unelected nature of it. Sometimes when they're elected, there was a Conservative peer, for example, who is very famously against the House of Lords, and she was asked, was it Claire Fox? I can't remember. But she was asked anyway when she was elevated, oh, why are you doing that? You're against the House of Lords. It's like, well, it's just the system you're in, right? You have to live in the system you're in. It's just like if you're an anti-capitalist, but you buy your own house and car, you're not a hypocrite. You're just living in the real world. You could still say, but I wish this system didn't exist. But it does exist, right? So that's not hypocrisy. So it's not hypocrisy for Nigel Farage to say he wants some peers as such. But it is worth considering why he wants those peers. Because he can't get enough peers to affect legislation in the House. He can only have representation there. So he could have some peers who will get access to documents which are available to members of the House of Lords. But then we come to who he would appoint. So we're going to go down the list again. So Nigel Farage says the House of Lords is stuffed full of former MPs, which is actually not a problem, party donors, which I agree is a problem, spivs, former European commissioners, which is not a problem because they're still politicians, former politicians. If you're used to scrutinising legislation, you're the very person that should be there. And he says they're a London-based clique. So let's go down the list. Is he going to appoint some former MPs? No, he doesn't have any. Is he going to appoint party donors? If he appoints party donors, that means what he's after is a cash for honours system. He wants to be able to attract donors in return for putting them in the House of Lords. That would be corrupt, right? That would be corrupt. Spivs. Well, who's gonna own up to putting a spiv in the House of Lords? So presumably he doesn't want to do that. Former European commissioners, or should we just say other former politicians. No, he's not going to put those in. He says they're a London-based clique. Does that mean he won't elevate anyone to the House of Lords that's got a home in London? I'd be very surprised. I mean, if I were Keir Starmer, honestly, I would give him a couple of nominations. I would say you can have a couple, right? Oh, you can have a couple. And I will bet you, those couple go to people who have a house in London, right? And donate to Reform UK. Be willing to bet you anything. Which is interesting. Because honestly, go through the list. This is what Nigel Farage says is in the House of Lords. Former MPs, they don't have any. Party donors, spivs, former European commissioners, don't have any of them. London-based clique. Well, who's he going to appoint? Who is he going to appoint? He's going to appoint party donors. He's going to appoint people in return for cash. That's really why he wants to do it. He's realised, he knows he's not getting enough donations. He appointed a billionaire to be the party's treasurer. It's not, well, so far as we can tell, you know, obviously it's always in arrears, the published donations. He doesn't seem to be getting that many donations. His Elon Musk money seems to have fallen through. He's struggling a bit. Labour are going to legislate against having foreign donations. He needs a way of getting donors in. This will be why he wants these nominations. So that he can say to people, well, the Conservatives had this deal where you give them £3 million and you get a seat in the House of Lords. I think I can see my way clear to doing something like that. What do you think? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you later.